So, hello everyone. I'm here today with Juan Callejas, our MBA student, and today we're going to talk about a theme that just popped up from a post on LinkedIn, which I was curious to learn people's opinions on, and Juan commented, and we decided to talk. So, this is a very spontaneous live we're doing today. And how are you, Juan? How are you doing?
I am doing very, very well. Thank you so much. Yeah, I've been working hard on my homework.
Oh, good stuff. That's a good sign. If you're working on homework, it's a good sign. All right, let me just do the quick countdown and we'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? This is a global transmission. Hayek will be live in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Enjoy the show.
All right, and we're back. So,
Excellent.
Juan, yeah. Juan, the question is humility and ambition. Can leaders have both of these working together or do these oppose each other? What are your thoughts?
I would say that they must have both of them, but above both of them, I mean, or probably perhaps the first and most important one must be humility,
Okay.
and because that drives how your ambition is executed and how you go about um, either fueling or channeling or using that ambition to pursue whatever goals you set yourself out to get.
Okay, I agree with you, but let me just try to think of it in a way where it might get people confused, right? When you think about someone that's humble, um, it might come to mind a person which is soft talking, and it doesn't necessarily come out as the person who is the one that's gonna jump in across in line to get things done, or which will be too energetic about uh, what they're doing, right? I don't know if I'm articulating this how I wanted to, but wouldn't you think that the person that's very humble, that's the image that comes up to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would be the person which wouldn't be as aggressive in, that's maybe the word, maybe a humble person wouldn't come out as aggressive in trying to meet their goals or becoming the ambitious person that organizations sometimes need as a leader. Wouldn't that come up to your mind, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that definition of humility, or that definition of a humble person, as soft spoken, as passive, as sheepish in a way,
Yeah, that's the
unaggressive,
word.
um, plays into, I think, the sort of caricature that the media uses to portray business people as cutthroat,
Hmm.
aggressive, uh, go after your goals at any cost, be that financial, human, emotional, psychological, whatever cost. But you go and get it, and you beat people to the punch, and you destroy the competition. I think that sort of I think it's a caricature of what
Hmm.
a true business person is in real life, or should be in real life. I'm not saying that. Of course, there are people that behave that way in business, But there are also people that are not in business that behave that way as well. So it's not necessarily a flaw of business as a profession, but rather it's more of a character flaw, a personal flaw. But I would say that humility, one of the best definitions I've heard of humility is by an author, one of my favorite contemporary authors. His name is Timothy Keller. And his definition of humility is a rather simple one, but I think it's rather profound. He says that humility is not thinking less about yourself, but rather thinking about yourself less. And if we start from that definition, I would venture to argue that the cardinal virtue for a successful long-term vision for business is humility.
Okay.
Because starting a business, working at a business, even as an employee, requires a very specific mindset if you want to do things well in the long term. Of course, you can gain a lot of things in the short term by cheating, by stepping over your colleagues at work, by unethically blocking your competition, by lobbying the government to get your own way and block competitors from working, or you can do a lot of things, but that's not going to get you. It might get you an interesting short-term gain, but it's not going to get you in the long game. Business, as we talked about this before in the last time that we met here, is that business is about people. It's about people interacting with each other, collaborating with each other. And at the end, it's about meeting the needs of others. And so in order for a business person to succeed, he or she must be humble enough to be willing to listen to the market, to observe people, to learn from what people are asking for, from what the market is doing. He or she must be willing as well to hire people that are better than him or her in executing specific tasks. Like you might own the business, but you don't know everything you need to know about IT. You don't know everything you need to know about production or manufacturing, or you don't know everything you need to know about finances or whatever, right? And so you must be humble enough to hire those people that are better than you, and to submit, even if you're the owner or the CEO, to submit to their expertise and their expert counsel in order to make the best decisions for the business to go forward. Because at the end, that's what helps you sustain not only the business per se, which is, it could become kind of like an abstract idea, but actually people's jobs, people's livelihoods, to continue to deliver a service that adds value, that improves people's lives, to produce the products that people need, and all these things. I think it does require a high level of humility to be able to put yourself in that mindset and that framework, and to sustain this in the long run. So it's not by any means a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of tremendous strength and self-control, and it helps you become a better critical thinker, a better analyzer, to enter into dialogue, better learner. So I think humility should be the cardinal virtue at the heart of the business vocation.
Yeah, you have very good thoughts there. And just to add, the way I see, and just complementing what you said, you start with ambition to set your goals, right? If there's two ways you can be setting your goals. You can set your goals in a way that's not ambitious. You say, okay, I'm just gonna, play safe. No, I'm not gonna be so ambitious here. Or you can dream big and say, okay, no, I'm gonna totally disrupt the industry. I'm gonna be the best of the best, and that's my goal. I want ambition. I want big goals. Now, how do you get from here to there? That's where humility would help you achieve an ambitious goal, right? So it actually complements in a way, because if you're if you have the characteristic that is opposite of humility, which is arrogance, and you say, no, I already know everything I need to know about the industry, and so one thing, like, I don't need any benchmarking. I don't need to study my competitors. I'm already the best. So this is going to play against you if you want to achieve these ambitious goals. Or, as you said, if you don't understand that the limits of your knowledge, or the uncertainty that you have regarding whatever skills you need to do that job, you might neglect that you need to hire people that are better than you, or even pay good salaries or give good conditions for people who are good at what they do to do their job. And you might overplay your own skills in order to get to that place. So that's why being humble also complements and helps actually getting to those ambitious goals, right?
Yeah, and that's why I don't think those two ideas of humility and ambition are necessarily mutually exclusive. Of course, dreaming big and setting for yourself challenging goals, it also helps keep you humble, because it shows you how long you have to go, how much harder you need to work, how you depend and rely on others to achieve those goals that you might have. And so setting ambitious goals it isn't necessarily exclusive of keeping a humble attitude. It's not, ambition is not the same as greed. Ambition is not the same as a crony type of business person that wants to get certain privileges so that they can dominate the market and block out competitors and things like that. No, ambition drives your initiative to constantly improve yourself against yourself, to constantly serve your customers better, to improve the relationship that you have with them, to expand the ways that you interact with them, so that their lives can improve and they can continue to see value in having a relationship with you. And so I think that sort of mindset requires a huge level of humility, because as you said, you don't know everything. You can't have this crystal ball of where the market is going to go. You need help. You need you need to submit to good lawyers. You need to submit to sound financial advice. You need to listen to your suppliers, or where they see that the industry is going, and you need to also, which might sound even contradictory, but you need to also acknowledge what your competition is doing well, and learn from them, not so that you can destroy them, but so that you can find your own space in providing the market with something unique, with something different, that allows for the pie to grow. Because again, a lot of the times people get stuck, and this competitive mindset gets stuck in the idea of a fixed pie, right? This sort of zero-sum game, that in order for me to win, someone must lose. And this is not the case in business or in the market. The pie can grow, the pie can get bigger. And so even it's not the same to have 50% of a pie that's worth $100 than to have 10% of a pie that's worth $1 million, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
what the market needs to do, and entrepreneurs and business people need to do, is not only grow their own business, but seek how to grow the pie so that more people can have access to the goods and services that you provide, so that there's more room, more space for everyone to to grow in a profitable way and not get stuck cannibalizing each other and eating out at each other's profits with price wars or unethical practices that end up destroying value for the entire market. So that again, that sort of ambition requires that humble aspect and that willingness to know that you can always do better. There's always a better way of furthering the growth of your company.
Yeah. Just to complement that, on an ambition, you don't necessarily need to be ambitious. And as you said, the idea of the cutthroat, greedy capitalist, which is on business. Well, in essence, even if you accept the narrative, which I don't, of that profit is evil in a certain way, you can be ambitious about charity, right? I want to be ambitious about saving as many lives as I can in a hospital, and I want to just save. So ambition in a certain way can be ambition to do good, and as we understand, doing business voluntarily in a positive sum game type of way. With ethics and integrity, and we see as virtuous. And if you do virtuous business and you are ambitious about your goals, you're gonna do good for society and everything.
Yeah,
so I totally agree with you. And I'll bring another concept too. I just when you were talking, I remembered an essay that I wrote recently on Roger Federer. He recently retired, and one of the things that I noticed in his retirement, he wrote a retirement letter for his for when he the day he retired, right? When he posted on Instagram, and you can see on his essay, which is very clear, is that one, he had very ambitious goals. He wanted to become a grand player when he was a kid, and he was speaking about when he was a kid. And two, you can see explicitly how humble he was, because he understood that his talent was so good that he was surprised about how good he got. And you can see in his letter that he was very humble. And also something that he talked about, which is what I want to bring up, is that he mentioned how he had so much confidence in himself after a few victories that he had, and he attributed the success he had to the confidence. So you can see also that these three things can work together, right? Which is the ambition, humility, and also confidence. You can be humble and confident,
of course,
in the same way, right? These are not excluding each other.
Yeah, that's perfectly well said. At the end of the day, and that confidence grows or is built up by having the right signals that you are doing well, and that you are not only doing well. I'm going to quote one of my favorite TV shows. My favorite TV show of all time, or at least top 3, is a show called Boy Meets World. You can watch it on Disney Plus. But one of the key phrases of that show is when the school principal tells the main cast, he tells them, he's saying goodbye to them, and he says, "Do good." And then one of the characters answers, "Don't you mean do well?" And he says, "No, do good." And so I think when you see that the right indicators are showing you that you are doing not only well but doing good, that helps build your confidence. In the case of Federer, he sees it in terms of the number of championships that he has won. the fact that he has led, I would say, a scandal-free career that he can be proud of, and that he's done well and he's done good for himself. A company can also see, profit is not an end in and of itself. Profit is a signal. Profit is a signal that you're doing well, that the market values what you are saying, that the market values what you are presenting. And so, you're doing well, you're getting those results. But also you need to ensure that while you are doing well, you're also doing good by your employees, doing good by your shareholders, suppliers, by your customers, that you are fulfilling the promises that you have made, that you are not using, if you're a service company and you promise to always be on your customer side, that's not just a marketing ploy, but it's actually something that you are committed to, right? And so all those, if you're moving on the right way, the market will reward you. And in the case of business, the reward at the end of the day is profit that shows you that you can continue growing, that you can continue investing, innovating, employing people, generating wealth for yourself and your shareholders and your employees, and also generating value for those customers, value in the sense of an improved life, a better sense, more efficient life, more productive life, more enjoyable life, whatever, wherever whatever your industry may be. So, yeah, self-confidence is very important. But again, I think, I was speaking with my daughter today, and how, I was telling her, this might sound off topic, but I think it has something to do with it. But talking to her about the dangers that I saw in this idea of self-love, right? How self-love, you got it, self-love is the best, self-love here, self-love there. And I told her, look, love is by definition sacrificial. It's geared, it's intended towards the other. And the fact that that's, I told her self-love is deceitful. And she said, yeah, but you can't hate yourself. I said, both self-love and self-hate is navel gazing. It's just looking down on looking at yourself. But love is pointed outside yourself. And so ambition in business, humility in business, confidence in business, it also needs to point outside of yourself, so that the market is served well by whatever it is that you do, and you can really show how virtue at the end is the best way to attend the market in a sustainable manner. And it's not just about reaping the immediate profit that then you can go and just for the profit itself, and you can live, just take all the money and close shop and go. You leave everyone hanging, right? Employees, suppliers, customers. It's not about that. It's about growth. It's about service. It's about business is also about sacrifice. It's about taking a risk. So it's always other directed. It's always, directed outside ourselves. And that's why I think humility is very important. And that's why I think that the grounds for true ambition and true confidence is humility.
Yeah. A thought on what you said is the way I see it. It can be summarized in the rule of thumb. We seek to find mutual benefit in business, right? So if you're in business, you're constantly seeking to understand what your customer desires and how you can bring about producing something that meets those desires.
Yeah.
In a way that is also advantageous to you.
Of course.
So it's about finding mutual benefit. And also, if you put in the transparency in the equation, I give you all the information that I have, and I do it with integrity. Transparency. I'm not gonna sell you something that I I'm hiding information from you. So I give you an apple and it's rotten in the middle, and I know it's rotten in the middle, and you you happen to eat the rotten apple, and like, oh yeah, you got screwed. You ate the rotten apple. That's not good, right? So that's lacking transparency. Or with integrity, maybe you have bought the rotten apple, and I happen to do some type of fraud, or I don't know, get into some type of way that doesn't act with it, then that won't be good too. So if you have transparency, integrity, and you're thinking about mutual benefit, businesses should be always good.
And yeah, we have those examples, right? You have the companies that, you bought a wrong product that wasn't working, and you take it in to exchange, or you brought it back to exchange it for something else because you didn't like it, or it just didn't seem right, or whatever. And there's companies that would say, yeah, right away they will switch it, and oh, I'm sorry, we got it wrong. What can we do to make it up? And you walk away, even if you had a negative experience with the product, you walk away happy, pleased, satisfied. You trust the company because they know that they take you seriously and all that. And that requires humility. Whereas there's companies that, they don't trust you. They don't trust the customer. They would say, no, you're probably trying to rip us off. We have a no exchange policy, or, the fine print on the exchange policy has some obscure, if you came in with black socks, we're not going to exchange your stuff or whatever. You end up losing trust in that company, and that company comes off as arrogant, as we're not here to serve you, we're here to serve ourselves. And so even if you're, and nowadays with the experience economy, with people being more sensitive about many things, customer service at all touch points, be that email, Twitter, social media, at the store, call center, they need to, companies need to show that they are really willing to listen to customers and help them out, and not leave them hanging with, oh, I just sent an email to whomever is in charge. May I speak with whomever is in charge? No, our company policy is not to share that information. You can't do that in 2022, right? And so that doesn't show humility. Humility shows, you know what? We messed up, and we're going to do everything we can to help you out. And I think those types of companies that are geared to true customer service are companies that display humility. But also, in order for that to work, in order for that to really happen, companies must be humble from within, meaning the way that they treat employees, the way that they compensate employees, the way that they organize processes, the way that they organize compensation structures, the way that they promote people. All those practices and processes and policies, internal policies, must be lived out first from within, so that whatever you do outside is credible. Because employees need to really believe in what they're doing and what they're selling. I remember when I was working for a home appliance company in Guatemala. I was first the sales manager, and then I was the country manager. And I asked, when I became the country manager, I asked the finance person and the HR person, what's the policy on selling our appliances to our employees? And they showed me, and I said, this is predatory. We're selling them retail. Why are we selling them our appliances retail? We want them to be our ambassadors. No, we're changing the policy. The new price list for employees is this. We are going to allow them up to 6 months or something like that to pay off whatever they want to buy. Of course, we're going to limit the amount so that they don't set up their own store, for example, and things like that, right? But I remember when we changed that policy, one of the ladies that was part of the trade marketing team, which sold our appliances in the stores and placed POP material and did promotions and all that stuff. She bought a refrigerator, and and she lived in far away in the country near the Atlantic coast. And then we had a meeting with everyone in the city with every person in the company, and I asked her, how's the refrigerator? How are you doing? And he said, this was my first refrigerator in my life.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? You have a person working for you selling refrigerators and stoves that did not have access because we were arrogant.
And she was selling a refrigerator and she didn't have one at home.
And our policy was to profit off of our employees. And I said, and when we changed that, then she was able to buy something. Right? And so how you design your organization, how you display humility towards your employees, towards those people that report to you in everything that you do, that transpires out into the market, into your relationship with suppliers, with customers, with clients, with all the people that you deal with. And that's what builds culture.
And I can do a parallel in that in the higher education industry. If you have employees, the best policy you can do is to give them a good discount if they're going to study with you, because that would be the best way that they would become the promoters of what you do. And we're going to also bring back a concept which we just talked about, which is confidence. Yeah. Right? If you have the product yourself, if you don't have a product, how can you be confident that that is a good thing to sell? You can't. Please buy this. This is the best thing ever. But if you don't feel it inside, if you're not confident about that, you can't sell it well. And the best way to be confident about something is by being a customer yourself. Yeah. Right. So in any business, that could be applied.
Yeah, and and it shows everywhere. I remember, I also worked for another home appliance company. I worked for a time in Guatemala and for a time in Brazil. During my time in Guatemala, again, our employee sales policy was awesome. People could get their stuff. They got their stuff. They were very happy. When I got to Brazil, of course I had the benefits to buying the stuff for my house and everything. And then I asked around what the policy was. And, I was a manager and I got a higher discount. I was a manager in Sao Paulo, and our stuff was manufactured in Joinville, which is south, right? I had a higher discount as a manager than the guy at the plant making the stuff. And I said, I was like, why? I mean, with my salary, I can afford the higher price, but we want them to have the stuff. We want them to benefit from what we sell.
Of course.
I also remember one of my very first experiences, and that showed me a lot of humility and a lot of grace as well, I would say. I worked for Colgate in the Central America office here in Guatemala. I was a product manager. And if you ever meet anyone from Colgate, they're probably going to be able to verify this that I'm going to say. How you present at a meeting with general managers or whatever, the quality of your presentation will define your career. It'll make or break your career, right? Presentation is everything at Colgate. And so I had worked on my presentation for all the general managers of all the countries in my region and for the Central American general manager. And my boss had resigned. So I did the final presentation. I finished it up on my own. And it was my turn to present.
What were you presenting?
I was presenting shares, sales, things like that.
Stuff you had done.
Yeah. Okay. And so I was about probably 3 months in the company or something, and I had this big presentation, and so I was presenting, and so I put up my slide. At the time, there were printed slides. That's how old I am. This was back in 2004. Printed slides, and on the projector machine, right?
Oh, still the projector machine.
Yeah, the
Okay.
projector machine.
Yeah,
And so I placed this sign. Look at our sales. Our sales are flying. Look, we're doing very well. And I was very excited about my presentation. And the general manager, she was amazing. I have the highest respect for her. Aside from the fact that she introduced my mom to my dad, but that's another story. She was they were working at another company way back when. But now she was the general manager. Yeah. Well, she knew who I was, but she didn't know me, right?
Okay.
Anyway, she had a little box beside her at every meeting with all her notebooks from every year and every meeting and everything. So she goes to the box, she takes out her notebook, she opens it, and she browses through it, looks at my chart, looks back down at the notebook, and she said, "You know, Juan, those aren't the numbers." And I froze. I completely froze. I had no explanation. And, and she said, "You probably took the numbers out, with value added tax included. And we need the numbers without the value added tax." I had no way to respond. Right. And so the CFO, he raises his hand and he says, "Why don't we let him go back, rework those slides, and have him come back and present?" So they let me off the hook. I go back. My face is white, right? It's like I died in there. My colleagues, the rest of the product managers look at me and says, "What happened?" And I'm like, "This happened." And so one of my friends, he's now the marketing manager at Walmart here in Guatemala. I love him to death. He's like, I was about to sit down on my desk, and he's like, "Get out of here. I'm going to do this for you." And he and the rest of the guys are just getting the numbers of the computers and helping me, rework my presentation. And that was such a lesson for me, right? They set aside their own nerves, their own jitters, their own presentation, whatever that they might have, to help out the new guy who was, suffering, and I made it through eventually from the presentation and everything. And, it was one of the most amazing and humbling experiences. And the marketing director the new guy that came, he died a few years after that, but he came. He was this Excel guru, right? He was a marketing director, but was an Excel wizard. And all the time he was in his office, he was programming like Excel formulas and cheats to help us be more efficient.
Yeah.
And he would stay with us for up to 2-3 in the morning, working on our presentations for when the people from New York came. And he said, "We are going to rehearse with you your presentation until this is bulletproof. I will not let you go in there without a bulletproof presentation. I have your back." That to me showed me more than my MBA and everything had shown me before about what it means to be a leader. An ambitious and a humble leader, a guy that's willing to teach, that is willing to help you out, but also sets very high standards for you and pushes you to the limit, right? And so from those examples is where I gather in practice, in a very practical way, the importance of these things that we are speaking about.
I love those examples. It comes to show how a healthy, a culturally healthy environment in work is about people who have each other's backs.
Yeah.
It's not about people who push you and leave it for you to push yourself, and now you have to do it. This is your job. It's not my job. Go ahead and do it. But rather, here, I help you out. Now I got your back, and you become much more productive like that. And you feel like you should be. You feel guilty. Wow, I should be working for this person. Whenever he has a problem, you're gonna have his back too.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's a great story.
Yeah, then you were saying.
Yeah. I was just gonna think back um, to the role of confidence and um, how. So what I was thinking about these three topics, right? Coming back to the initial topic of our conversation, we're talking about humility, ambition, and we also brought in confidence after in our conversation.
Yeah.
So ambition is about how much how tough you set your goals, right? How much you really want your goals, and in order to achieve bigger goals, you need humility to understand and complement how much you can actually gain from that ambition, and also the more humble you are, the more confident you can also become.
Mm-hmm.
And here I'm gonna recall people, arrogant people, sometimes hide behind their arrogance and start to get into situations to sometimes even like pretending that I know what I don't know, right?
Yeah.
And because they are arrogant, it shows a lack of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually the opposite. If you are not humble, you become less confident
Yeah.
because you don't have the humility of saying, I don't know this, let me look for the answer, or let me call someone that actually does. So
Yeah.
you don't become confident in what you're doing, and it works against you.
Yeah.
So it's actually the opposite, right? The more humble you are, the more you can become confident.
Yeah. Completely. Because it leads you, your humility leads you to seek out the right information. It helps build a very important virtue, I think, that business needs, which is to learn how to be resourceful. Right? It's like that old joke about the guy that called in the computer technician, and the computer technician comes in, looks at the computer, he takes out a little screw, screws the thing in, turns the computer on, and everything works. And he hands the guy the bill, and it's like $1,000. And he's like, $1,000? Why are you charging me $1,000 for a little screw? I need to understand this. All right, I'm gonna write you a new invoice. $1 for the screw, $999 for knowing which screw to use. And so, at the end, it comes down to that, to learning. It's not about knowing everything. It's about knowing where to look for information. And again, it's being teachable, because it also implies, when confronted with evidence, confronted with information that you didn't have, or you did not know, or maybe that you got wrong. It's like me in that presentation room. I could have said, no, those are the numbers. I took them right out of the system. That would not have worked, right? It takes humility to learn to say, oh yeah, I messed up, I'm wrong, and let me correct it, or I don't know, let me find out for you. I overlooked that fact. I overlooked that piece of information that you're requesting. And so that's one of the things that I think is very, very helpful. Another thing that I do think is very, very helpful, especially inside companies. I last company I worked with, the atmosphere was very, very tough, in a very negative way. And I was speaking with my team and how we can diffuse some of these sort of tensions that are kind of inherent in the culture of the company. And I told them that one of the best ways that we can help diffuse situations and change the tone of conversations is when you pick up a phone call, or when they come knocking at your door, you ask people, how may I serve you? And when you put yourself at others' service, that completely changes the tone of conversations. It completely changes the tone of meetings. It completely changes the tone of phone calls. And that's something I learned while working at retail. I was during my school vacations, way back when in the late 80s and 90s, early 90s. I worked for a major retailer. And so of course, as any major retailer, Christmas is just crazy, right?
Yeah.
People fighting over stuff, and they always told us, even though we were young kids and we might get abuse from customers or whatever, every time we approached a customer, the first thing we said is, how may I serve you? Not how may I help you, how may I serve you? And that stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've used it ever since, and I think that, especially in the case of leaders, if you're a manager, a director, a CEO, a business owner, that attitude of humble servant leadership is what changes the game at the end of the day in your relationships with the people that you work with. And that's, I think, a very important virtue. Again, that's an extension of this humility thing that we've talking about, right? And how you can serve others, and that's how it sounds weird, right?
To lead is to serve. It's kind of contradictory, right? Because you don't expect the leader to be a servant.
Yeah,
but it actually works even better for the leader because he can lead by example.
Yeah, and that's been my guiding paradigm, I guess, for when I think about leadership, or when I'm a manager or whatever. My job, as I always tell the people that I work with, is to make sure that you are successful in what you do. That is my job, to ensure your success in your projects, in your initiatives, to make sure that things get done. We'll work together on that, and my job is to clear the way for you, which is one of interestingly enough, it's one of the it's a very important part of Franklin Covey's the 4 disciplines of execution.
Okay.
In one of the activities that they have is a meeting where a very important part of the meeting is called clearing obstacles. So it's where the leader becomes accountable to his or her team, and reports on the success that they might have had in clearing obstacles for them so that they can achieve their goals. And that's something I think that is missing in a lot of corporate cultures, and how leaders can actually serve and work with their employees in mind so that they can be successful, and in turn the company then becomes successful.
And just to complement that, it's very hard, from what I've seen, to change a company culture from the bottom up.
Yeah.
If you have a toxic culture coming from above, your directors, your CEOs, your board, or whatever, that's probably going to trickle down, and that's going to be the norm of the culture. And even if you have managers which are trying to work against that culture and building a different culture from the bottom, it's not going to work too well in their favor.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very tough to do any type of change, even within their own teams. Yeah. So I think it's one of those things that it really has to come top down. It has to come from the leadership to build this. And I love how you say the servant type of leader, right? Because the servant leader type of culture, where you show by example how you're serving your colleagues, your employees, and even your clients.
Yeah. And it has to be, and this is something, and this is where business, in a way, has its limits, right? Because these sorts of values, this sort of behavior, or toxicity or non-toxicity, doesn't just happen in business. You carry it with you, right? So this is where there must be an important as business people, or as people in business, or as employees or leaders or owners or CEOs, the hard job of asking yourself the hard questions, the job of introspection, the job of being accountable to others, that if you commit yourself to that, if you submit yourself to that, then there's the possibility of change. But if leaders are isolated, I always call the C-suite in a company the Olympus, right? If it's going to be forever the Olympus, if it's going to be the pantheon of the omnipotent, all-knowing gods that rule the business in a sovereign way and are unquestionable or whatever, then nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
So as a leader, as a person, I think that you need to come to terms with the fact that you are a part of something way greater than yourself.
Of course.
And that we all need to submit to something greater than us, or someone greater than us, that can help us, that can help keep us accountable, that can help keep us humble. And
something a thought that came up to me is I talked about this in the graduation ceremony when I did a commencement speech, which is also understanding that you're humble, but also understanding that others do not have superpowers that go beyond you. Like your boss is the CEO, of course, and he's not going to have the superpowers and everything. Yeah. And I'm bringing this up because I've seen it before, how in selection processes of CEOs and directors, people sometimes are a little hesitant of asking the technical questions, as if like, okay, now this person already should be knowing all this, and I shouldn't be, nitpicking too much on it because he's gonna be my boss, or he's gonna be, my colleague as a director. He's already up in the ladder of the corporate ladder. Why would I be asking these, HR-ish questions to get to know if he actually has good personality or whatever? When in fact, you should be even asking even harder questions, or even grilling even more the person, because he's the CEO, right? Because and often people have this kind of hesitance of doing the background checks, or requesting accountability in the selection process of people who are higher in the hierarchy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, one of the I shared with you a book, chapter from a book that, the title of the chapter is Be Humble. This is the book right here. It was written by one of my professors in my MBA, and one of the chapters of the book about selecting people, about hiring people. Just the title of the chapter shows you the mindset that we need to work on. Measure twice, hire once. Right.
Yes.
When you hire, when you assess people, you need to make sure that you've done your homework, that you take the necessary time, and that means hiring calling in a second pair of eyes. Yeah. To talk to the person and not just go with your gut feeling. That means carefully understanding. If you're going to do a psychographic test, all right, but I want to understand it. I want to interpret it right. I want it to be explained right, and have the sufficient counsel to make the right decision, right? And that means asking the right questions. That means going through the material, and seeing if the person is willing to, be accountable, to have that attitude of service, and not only be technically competent, but also be a human being that you want to be around with, and that your employees will benefit from, and not come to just boss people around, or yell at people, or maybe be too passive to do anything. Maybe maybe you don't need the academic with the PhD. Maybe you need the person with the street smarts, or maybe you don't need the person with the street smarts and you need the PhD, but you need to really do your homework when you hire those persons, and look for those qualities that, some of them are going to be in the CV. Some of them you can measure, but some of them you need to have several people talk to them. And one of that book, this book that I told you, one of the this is a very interesting principle that they share about building a competitive workforce. They say that we must offer applicants a realistic job interview or preview, which also means talking about those things in your company that are not good, to allow you to listen to your peers or to your colleagues or people that might report to you or whatever, that they can speak frankly about the things that they like and also about the things that they don't like, the things that are not working, so that you also yourself know what mess you're getting into. I remember I was hired by a telecom company a while back, and they said, we're going to offer you 15 salaries. I say, oh, that's very interesting, 15 salaries. And then I found out that the 15th salary is not actually a salary, but what the company did is that they hired you under like a shell company that manages people. They fired you after a year, and then another company, shell company, would hire you. And so the 15th salary after a year would actually be your severance.
Oh.
Right?
And they probably were doing that for some, I don't know.
Yeah, probably save a few bucks or whatever. Okay. But again, it's not honest in your hiring process to sell you on 15 salaries when it's really not. Right?
It breaks an expectation.
Yeah. And so, as a company that hires, you must also be humble enough to tell, look, this company is great. This is not so great. You should know in advance. Right?
Of course.
Because no company is utopia, right? So yeah, and a mature person, a mature leader, a mature employee will be able to handle it. We'll be able to make an informed decision instead of having their expectations just blown right out of the water. And that changes the whole way that you approach your new job, which should be exciting. You should be happy about being there, but then you're like, right? So
it's you said a very good point there, which is managing the expectation. I did that mistake before, managing the expectations. When I first joined the Uniceplac, I became a director, and I was a very junior in my career, and I because of the family business, I got promoted really fast as a director, right? From being the most junior assistant to the director, one day to the other. And I was in charge of hiring a marketing manager. And our company wasn't that well managed, especially when we first began. And I sold it as if it was a position where he would have the autonomy to do many things. Oh no, you're gonna come here when you're gonna do so many things. You're gonna have autonomy to do this, and that, and it's gonna be great, etc. And then once he steps in, he realizes, well, it's not as this guy told me. And I just realized, wow, I think I sold what I shouldn't have sold to this guy. Yeah. And you could quickly see that it didn't work out. And in 3 months, he left because I sold him an expectation that didn't exist. So I learned the lesson. Every time I would hire somebody, the next time I would play it down, right? I'm like, no, this is going to be a job where you have to do, I would really play down the position. So when he comes in, he would say, oh, it's not that bad as he was saying it was in the interview. And it actually worked much better for me. So I recall this experience.
Yeah, I think that's it's very, very important. And this is where we see how humility plays in all over, and how that can it not only helps you set your expectations right, but it also helps you define your ambitions better. Right? If you're hired in a company that after a while you see that the only people that get promoted to several positions are family members, then your drive, your ambition, well, that's, this is not for me. You might have, and you might be more qualified. You might have worked harder to compete, at least to get a fair shot, right, at the position. But if at the end, if it's a nepotistic environment, or if it's, keeping the family in just to secure, some obscure idea of a family fortune or whatever, and not allowing the best professionals to help you grow that family fortune that you want to protect so jealously or zealously, then people's ambitions are just, they're just going to get, you know what? I'm just going to do this for myself and not going to consider anything or anyone. Or maybe people that have the capacity to lead, when they see how things, it's like Icarus, right? If you fly too close to the sun, your wings will melt and you'll fall down. Some people might see that if you go up the corporate ladder in certain companies, that's not a good place to be, because you're closer, to the Olympus, and you get the wrath of the gods poured down on you all the time.
Like politics.
Yeah.
The closer you get to the top of the power, the dirtier it gets.
So maybe I'll just stay here. I'll just stay here. I'll just do my job and where I am. And that stifles ambition, and that stifles your capacity to grow, because if you shine, then they're going to promote you, and you don't want to be promoted there, right? It's very interesting how these things play out in so many ways.
We're getting there to meritocracy, right?
Yeah,
which is another concept, but we can talk about it in a future
sure
podcast and explore more the topic. So we're already 1 hour in. I think our guests already enjoyed what we're watching, what they said. It was just one last question. You had some books to recommend. Would you just talk about the books you wanted to recommend?
Yeah, I'd like to recommend just a few books that have helped me think about these ideas, humility and business. I think these books are very helpful, and I do commend them to you. Hold on, I can't seem to be able to share my screen. Can you? Okay, there we go. So the first book is called Stewardship, Choosing Service Over Self-Interest. It's by Peter Block. It's an awesome book. I highly, highly commend it to you. Then the other one is called The Outward Mindset, Seeing Beyond Ourselves, which is an amazing way. It has some exercises. It has a website where you can measure if your mindset is outward, thinking about others, your employees, your customers, everything. It's an amazing, amazing book. It's very, very useful, very practical. Of course, everyone knows Simon Sinek. I don't know if everyone has read this book that he wrote, Leaders Eat Last, which I think is a very, very good management book. And it also helps with thinking about humility and how to go about and practice it. Of course, Stephen Covey's The Speed of Trust, about how, if there is trust in an organization, self-confidence, trust in your team, trust in your bosses, trust in your customers, trust in your suppliers, business just speeds through and costs come down. And it's just an amazing book. It also has many exercises and very practical things that you can do and work out with your team. And then these are more worldview type books, but I think that are also about business, but it can help you with these ideas. Spiritual Enterprise, Doing Virtuous Business by Theodore Roosevelt Malloch. It's an amazing book as well. And the last one, this is a classic. It's called Business as a Calling by Michael Novak, Work and the Examined Life. So these last two books are more worldview type books that I highly, highly commend to you guys when you think about these ideas, these sort of soft competencies or whatever you want to call them about business, right? So yeah, that would be just the final my final comments.
Awesome. These are great tips for me too. I'm surely gonna check out those books. I've been recommended to The Speed of Trust before, and I know Simon Sinek. I didn't know that book of Simon Sinek, so I'm surely gonna check those out. Thank you very much, Juan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody who watched this today, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.